podcast. What up, Shyamel?
Hey,
We've been meaning to do this for a while.
right. It's good to get started on this.
Fuck yeah. Nice to finally come together. Everybody, welcome into the show. I want to start the show by doing something special. I haven't told Tony about this yet. Shyamel, we have Tony and myself. We're very much like, we're a duo in a lot of ways, but we have a trifecta, right? And so what I want to do is give you an offering of a gift.
Yeah, nice.
A gift. I bought one for myself, I bought one for Tony, and I bought a third one. And I have not given it away until now. This is a tree of life made of copper, and in the middle is a moldavite stone. So This is for you.
Thank you.
No.
Now you have to do your research on it.
Yeah.
Do your research on
absolutely,
moldavite.
Dude.
It's
it looks very precious, and obviously,
awesome.
I'm gonna treat it as such because
you're worthy of that
It's
offering.
a really beautiful gift.
You're worthy of that
Lucky.
You're worthy of that offering. So
Yep.
I wanted to give it to you right at the start of the podcast.
That's
Thank
sweet.
you.
Just start the podcast off right,
Yeah.
So I mean, we were chatting a little bit. We were kind of talking about the unseen realms right before we hopped on.
Yeah.
We were talking, and I said, "Shyamel, stop!
Yeah.
Stop!
Oh, he's getting pretty deep. And
Stop! I want to wait. I want to hear it on the podcast." I mean, so like your own interpretations. You come from like almost. We all kind of come from different cultures in a way.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
You're raised in South Dakota. I'm from the East Coast. Obviously, Sean, were you born in India?
I was.
Did you
Yep.
grow? Did you like?
For almost 15 years. I was raised there.
he was raised there in India.
So
That's his home.
your perspective on, well, one, just life, but also like when we're talking things like spirituality and the unseen realms and faith and culture, it's such a different, diverse background than what we come from. I'd love to just like dive in with that segue. Like I want to learn. Like I want to learn from you. I want to hear your perspectives, your culture, because I don't get to talk to people who are raised in the environment you were raised in and have such a vast, differently like background than myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess you can take that however you want.
Right.
There's not really a question in that.
It's a way of looking at it, to perceive it as, each culture has its own interpretation of their thoughts and what their philosophers thought what life was meant to be like.
Mhm.
And for us, it was a lot more spiritual, less physical.
Mhm.
As compared to other cultures we've known to be as Vikings. They were warriors.
Yep.
Greeks, they were thinkers. They were good philosophers. At the same time, they were warriors. Each culture has a little bit of everything, but at the root of what they're trying to say is they all jumped into what we call life out of just on a whim, basically. You're born and you're thrown into a society with a few ideals that you're taught or you learn, and you just observe and you come to conclusions. Yes, exactly.
Yep. I like that.
Yep.
Like that. I mean, what now being in South Dakota, this is about as like America as it gets, in my opinion.
Very much.
For better or worse.
Fuck yeah.
This is about as America as it gets.
Oh, I feel labeled.
Do you feel your own like culture kind of like your own upbringing? Like, do you notice like clash or contrast in how you approach your own day to day and your spirituality and your faith and what you prioritize versus what you see all the other people around you kind of like diving into on a daily basis? I mean, I fucking do, and you're
from America.
I'm from America, right? So, I mean, with the values that you're talking about, it almost seems like in direct contrast to a lot of the American life and the way of being here, And I mean, that's a clash I have myself, so I can only imagine.
It's not very unrealistic to feel that way. It's common to know that there are so many differences at every turning point that you're gonna find this and that so different, and find yourself feeling like an outsider or just different overall.
Yep.
But it's often more connected on a deeper level that at the end of it, we're all just working towards maintaining the peace we've been able to stabilize in this place, you know?
Yep. Everybody has their part, regardless of where you're from or who you are or what you believe in. Everybody is just as importantly the same.
I mean, you go about what you find suitable for yourself, and that saying without breaking your own morals and ethics. Mm-hmm. And there's always ways, unless there are times when you'll find yourself at a crossroad where you're like, I can't really figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And those are times when you just kind of step back and go right back to your roots and kind of
trust in your own process.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to have the right instincts, because as long as you've believed in your culture, your faith, whatever it is, your ideology for so long, with such strong belief,
then you'll be good.
Your path you're choosing for yourself is going to be the right one.
Yep. I agree.
I like that. And that's kind of what I think brings us all together on this path in a way. Like, we all come from different backgrounds and cultures, obviously. And then the fact that we're here in this small town in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, and we've aligned on almost on like a deeper spiritual level, because we kind of hold that common, like, knowing.
Belief and knowing, yeah.
It's almost beyond belief. It's like a knowing of our interconnectedness and our shared consciousness and experience,
right?
And so we can kind of create community based on that obviously we go out and we're flowing with the ways things are in certain ways here, but we also aren't fully dependent and stuck in how others have lived before us and what others expect the culture to be, or what we're expected of us. And I think that gives us a little bit of meaning, gives us community, gives us a deeper purpose, meaning. And so it's quite beautiful, actually.
And, in our own rights, we're really not doing anything wrong even if you are opposing a certain very standard practice. Because, for say, a lot of Hindus coming from India, I'm a Hindu, a lot of Hindus believe, it's always a very controversial topic, talking about our diet, our dietary habits. Cows are considered holy, but the reality of it is because they are they have been a very important agricultural help for us for so many ages. It's tradition to respect it with so much
regard and high.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to disregard that life that's been with you for so many ages.
Yeah, so you can remember.
Exactly.
So it's something sacred to you guys.
There's a reverence.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually beautiful, really, because if you can kind of, turn your, perspectives and your energies and your thoughts to holding something like a cow so sacred. Like, me personally, like, I know how that is, with like buffaloes around here and stuff. Like, it is a sacred animal, and everything is sacred in a sense, or everything has its higher purpose because it has life, it has meaning, it has value. So when you take that away from it, and I always, like, personally, because like Evan said, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it's very different for me, and I'm very out there too, to try to, like, befriend and have more, but it's very, like, almost what's the word, like, it offends me in a sense that we sit here and do these things in front of you and eat fucking cow. No, I mean, and I get it, that's great that you're like, but it really is. It's disrespectful, and that's the thing that is really different for a guy like me personally. Like, I do come from a small little town in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of why, like, I gravitate and resonate towards beings of your magnitude, because, like, this place is boring and people are so stuck and so boring that, like, why would I want to surround myself with boring, unconventional, like, one-dimensional people? Like, I'm not going to, even if there's only 2 of you or 3 of you or however many around me. So when you bring those like, perspectives and your culture around, like, I personally really resonate with what you guys practice and how you feel, because, like, that's just how it is for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. So,
exactly.
There's beauty in
and
that.
You think about it that way. I mean, how many people have been traveling through the seas for ages, right? They don't have many food sources. You have to learn to accept certain parts of certain lives.
Well, there's a reason why the ocean is filled with infinite amount of fish, basically.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
You think about it that way. There's a reason why the earth grows fruits and berries and vegetables and stuff like that, because those are the things we are supposed to consume. Well, animals, in a sense, as far as mass consumption with 8 billion people, if every single person just solely like ate cows, like imagine, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but and you'd have to almost, I think you can go to the area in a sense too, where like when the natives were the only ones here in America, they weren't over hunting the buffalo.
No,
they weren't. And it was a sacred, like they understood their connection
the
cycle of life, where that it is almost a holy sacrifice, and they thank the earth, they honor the spirit of the buffalo, animal itself, and so there was this natural abundance of them as like a food source, and they and they could there's plenty of stories of individuals like going into almost like a deep meditation and calling upon the spirit of the animal, and the animal shows up and shows them the fucking location of where it's at, and they go to that location and they hunt it and they kill it, and it's an offering from earth, like here's the food, we're giving you this spirit of the animal. And you could
imagine if we were food
to some.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
who's to say? To some fucking animals we might be, right?
What's to stop a strong wildcat to just
it will eat you. They do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in Africa, all those like lions that will attack tribes and eat the people, it's like, it's not that, I don't think that the lion per se is like just doing it out of pure like territory. Like it probably is in some aspect, but on the other hand, it's hungry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to eat anything out there, not just the human.
Exactly.
So it's like,
I mean, it comes from a very basic understanding of saying, hey, I have an apple tree in my backyard. Apple grows, it's my apple.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, like you have people out here growing in this tribe, and this lion's like, well, they're in my backyard, I'm going to go eat them.
Yeah.
No different than kind of what we see. So I do respect that in your culture, and I also find it very fascinating how like other people don't understand that, because it's just like it's so pure, it really is, and then it kind of gives me like a sense of more purpose in your cult, because I can see it in my own culture too, So
I feel like the West has taken a domination mindset. And so we kind of
domination and convenience.
Yeah, and so it's like we don't hold things when you're like the king on the fucking hill. Like you don't necessarily need to, and this doesn't make you a good king by any means. No. A good king would recognize sacredness and value, but when you conquered, you almost can kind of take that domination mindset and not hold things in sacred regard, because you feel as if you power over it and you hold
it's yours and it's owed to you.
You hold yourself above it, right? And you don't recognize your own natural place within that cycle that exists. Exactly, and that hierarchy that's naturally present within nature, and we have a place in that. And I think we can kind of take a sacred approach to that. Well, then we can kind of create more harmonious
and connect
balance.
To it more than it actually. It's more meaningful.
Yeah, it makes life more meaningful.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
that's neat. That was a good little tidbit, huh?
Right.
What happened?
I'm getting a phone call. I'm gonna have to put it on the back burner. The phone call. Sorry.
Not the podcast.
Not the podcast.
We're done, guys. Sorry, we gotta quit. He's got a phone call. We'll be back tomorrow.
Right.
That's adorable.
But Shyamel, I'd also love to hear about like the unseen realm. So that's almost like the seen realm in a way.
Yeah, that's like kind of your perspective, and then kind of how we feel with it. But like, so we did draw a card. Just give us a kind of different template on what we wanted to talk about, and it was you drew the high priestess and talking about the unseen realm and stuff, and you guys dive into that real quick. I have to pee. I drank a lot of fluids before this, so
nothing wrong with that.
Keep going.
Well, and Shyamel, so you recently took a trip back to India, and so you go back often.
Yeah.
Like, and you go back, when you go back, you practice your faith, you practice like your customs and whatnot. I'm interested in like, what does your practice look like? Like, what is something? How do you navigate those? Because for me, when we're talking about the unseen, it's like stuff that I know but I don't see on the day to day. But it's like a guiding force. It's like a guiding light, something that I come back to and am rooted within my own foundation.
Right.
I'm curious to how that translates for you and what that looks like for you. Like, what are those things that you come back to on an internal level. So you hardly missed a thing.
Yeah, no,
I'm still fucking
asking him a question.
Yeah,
good. Nice, beautiful.
How that translates for you, and what is that like guiding force that isn't necessarily so seen for you? Like, what do you come back to, and what you're rooted in a lot of ways? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And when we're talking about an unseen realm and energies that drive you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to how strong your feelings or your emotions are in attachment to your faith or your belief. Like we mentioned, and Tony and I we had started a little bit of a conversation about this earlier. Was that unseen realm? It's what really is it? It's a form of an energy that we don't see because it exists outside the elemental states that we are aware of.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, we know air is here, but we don't see air.
No. You're right. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
You see what air can do to things, but we don't just see
Exactly. And for example, that's a very good way to put it, Tony, because when you're out in a deep conscious state, you ever just get that one little breeze of wind that guides you?
Oh yeah, all the time.
I mean, would you call that a little hint from your own personal, through your own personal understanding, would you call it a hint from an unseen realm guiding you towards something or telling you to stay away from something?
Most definitely.
It's like a synchronicity.
I think that exactly. Yeah. Quit reading my mind. We're gonna get into the telepathy too, because that goes back to our senses, and it's a good point you say that, Shyamel, because like when something like that guides you, it's a divine synchronicity, something that's actually it's supposed to happen to you. Mm-hmm. When you interpret it that way, when you feel it that way, and you express it that way, that's exactly how you're supposed to interpret it, because that's what it is. It is what it is. So when you're able to be guided by an elemental wind or something to that extent, it really shows you the divine nature of like where you're going.
Yep.
Because if you are connected in that way, obviously we can't feel and see those things in like a vision per se, or because that's not what a higher consciousness is. That's not what a higher feeling or belief is. It's not just this 3D matter of like things. Our spirituality, our energies are not things. It is its own thing.
Yep.
It's own energy. Its own energy per se. So it's beautiful. I like how you put that. Yeah.
I like it. Oh, getting me all the feels right now. But to me, it makes me think of this idea of like, so there's like a field, and I've been really interested in like the idea of like an electric universe lately, right? Mm-hmm. Almost the idea of the Earth is electromagnetic in its nature, and so we are electromagnetic in that. And there's this constant field that we are playing into, to where when we align our energy, regardless of its higher vibrational, low, dissonant, fear, whatever it is, like we are constantly in a feedback loop with our surroundings, and then we go and we attract whatever it is, right? It's law of attraction 101.
Yep.
And so if we are so divinely guided in that we're knowing in our faith, we're knowing in our practices, we believe in this higher power guiding us, we're going to catch those synchronicities, we're going to notice them and recognize them, because that's the state of awareness that we're in, right? And there's this constant communication that's going on between yourself, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And so that communication goes back to, if you're in dissonance, fear, and I don't know, absolute chaos, and you cause a car crash or whatever it is,
that's what's going to attract.
That's what you're going to attract. Yeah. That's still a communication, a feedback loop that you're creating. And so I think we're kind of constantly in tune with this. And when we can kind of take conscious control of it and that's when we're going to start to notice the fact it's almost like we're living in one like macro being, if you will. Like this is like a vast organism, and we are like different cells within that organism, communicating, harmonizing. And when you can kind of come into the bigger picture, well, then you recognize your own part, your own purpose, but how it plays into the larger, I would say, purpose of that being, of that larger being, of that higher being. And so there's kind of that constant communication and feedback, which I think and that's where synchronicities for me show up. We're out there and we're hiking and we find a feather right off the bat, and we're talking about owls, and boom, there's an owl feather.
Yep.
Like same type of deal, you know.
But for all walks of life, when you are directly tuned, when you take your your electromagnetic field, your aura, all the different words you can use that in. But when you are directly in tuned with everything else of the ether, that's when your divine manifestation happens. That's when the things that you are exactly supposed to be doing, seeing, perceiving, feeling, all experiencing happen to you.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can really do about that, because that's what your projection is. That's where you're supposed to be going. When you have doubts, when you have like questions on that, then you attract doubts and questions. But when you are synchronized with the true essence of like what you're supposed to be, who you are, that's when life is beautiful. That's when you don't really have any cares or concerns, because you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
And you know that, and you know it, and you get the constant reassurance.
The knowing, and the knowing almost turns into just being it, because you've known it for so long, and then the being part comes so naturally and so easy because you just feel so good. You feel like that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Right, exactly. But then it's interesting because you still have to take that approach and apply it to the
growth.
I was going to say almost to because that's not necessary. It will resonate with other people, but there are going to be other people who are stuck in, like what we were talking about earlier, in their conventional ways, into their preconditioned, programmed perceptions, right? So then you still have to take that approach and then go out and.
What do you think the problem is with that? Do you think? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. No, do you think that people are stuck like that because they just want to survive? Do you think that's why? When it boils down to everything else, like why people will not expand, will not change, will not grow? They're so stuck in that low vibrational state that they're just like, I need to be a solid object to withstand everything chaos around me. You think that's why?
I think it is a coping mechanism for survival.
It's gotta be. Yeah. Because it's like you have so many synchronicities or so many awesome things, even so many wild, crazy, horrible things happen, right? And you would think that because that's happening to you, you would want to change your state of being, like so much dissonance or so much just.
And a lot of people think that life is happening to them instead of them actually being having any sense of control. Or
it's not happening to you. You are a part of what that energy is. You have that choice to deflect it, to absorb it, to be. I mean, you have all these choices that you can choose to be, but it is not. It is not happening because of you. It is happening for you.
Well, right. But it takes a lot to actually embody that mindset, though. Like you look at the worst traumas and pains and hardships that you go through, can you actually frame it in this is happening for me? Then it changes the whole story. Changes your whole identity.
That's how I've gotten through so many traumatic experiences, so many like fucking horrible things that, don't get me wrong, guys, like everybody has their own ways to feel and perceive things, and by no way am I trying to boast or trying to compare, because comparing something is so far off the norm, because it's like, how can I compare this feeling with yours? Right. But on the other sense, like instances of chaos for me have been abundant.
Yeah, I feel you.
And because that has happened to me, I have moved into this state of like, it is what it is. I get to choose and react how I want to. And if I choose to not have it be a part of my reality, and it does not matter, it doesn't matter. It's not real.
Yeah.
Okay. And the only times that they ever become real is when like my family or my friends or my peers or whatever want to bring it up or want to like talk about it, and then it comes back to reality, and that's like, well, and I got to kind of give it some energy. But a lot of times I just let it go. I mean, I can't do anything about those things in the past, or even if they're happening to me now, I can only just be present and put my energy out there for the future.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, and I think you have to, that is called conscious ownership of one's own experience, and to create a reality that is in alignment with your values and what you believe in, and sort of this higher sense of purpose. Because if you are stuck in the past, then you're going to create a future that is defined based on past traumas or past hardships or past experience, and you create an ever-going feedback loop of that same thing. And I think that's what a lot of people are in, because they're so caught in it and they don't process it, and they're not willing to look in themselves in the mirror and see their own energy and their own responsibility and how it changes things and how it changes them. And so I think it kind of takes a full circle back to what you were saying initially. I think it's a survival tactic because we have this limited identity of ourselves as this one lifetime. This, I am the ego.
This is it. Yeah,
this is it. This is the experience.
There's nothing else.
Yeah. I need to preserve this experience, and I need to try and control it to the best of my ability. And so, people just live in fear because afraid of the ending of it, because time is ever passing. Getting older and older and older every single second.
I didn't do enough. I don't have enough, type of thing.
Right. And so people, it's easier to kind of run from that because you have to have a confrontation with death in the purest sense. And it doesn't have to be the physical death, but even on a spiritual level, you must, in order to actually grow, you kind of have to let the old self die and you reemerge. And it's like a sacred rite of passage into a higher way of being. And most people aren't willing to do that in a spiritual sense because they can't cope even with the physical aspects of death in reality.
They're scared,
it's fear, right? And I think we live in a fear-driven society, fear-driven programming. We're taught to fear everything, and so it's hard to like even get upset at people for doing that, because I get it. Like, I understand where it's coming from, and there's some things maybe we're naturally going to be afraid of, right? Where when you go into the unseen realm, if you haven't seen something, there's probably a level of fear and uncertainty, but you don't need to define yourself by that fear and uncertainty. And realistically, all you can do is choose courage. You can choose like the energy of the chariot, right? And like you kind of just power through it and say, all right, I'm gonna show up in it regardless. I don't care, shit. This is what it's. This
well,
is
that's why. That's what drew me to both of you guys. It's like there's nobody else that I've come across, and obviously there's people like us, and there's people that have the same beliefs, ideas, whatever. But the reason why I was drawn to you guys personally is like you're different. You are unique. You don't fit the norm. Like, people look at you weird, and I like that. I like that because it's like I'm gonna learn so much from these men that nobody else in this whole world can ever fucking teach me.
Yeah.
And I feel so grateful and honored to even be able to like bounce my ideas or have you be there for support, all these things, right? And everybody else is just like walking around and wondering like what phone they're gonna get or what game they're gonna go play or who they're dating, all this dumb shit that it's like, you know what? I understand your fake lives and the game of life. I get that because I've had so many different lives. I'm gonna be 40 years old this summer, so like I've had a lot of different lives, different careers, different professions. I have 3 boys, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's important to me in a sense, but it has some small importance to me as far as like my path, like getting to know you guys, experiencing life and growing on that. That is the interesting thing. It is fearful to try to trust you guys in a sense at first and be like, I wonder if they're like me, or I wonder, and then they're so much like me that it makes me feel so peaceful.
Yeah.
And even if you are Hindu, and even if you do have your own spirituality, whatever you believe in, I think is great for me, because I am not a one-dimensional being that has just one belief. My belief is that it's infinite. Everything is infinite. Exactly. Everything. So I don't have just like a stuck like perception on like this is right and you're wrong, Shyamel's right, or you're wrong and he's no, we're all right, because if we weren't, then we wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be all these people and all these ideas and all this energy. I mean,
there is a path leading from each perspective.
Yeah. And it's very getting to know a lot about the different Hindu gods in my own path, and I don't know shit, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know and I do know some tidbits of things, and I do resonate with so many different ones, but it's so interesting to me because I believe it's real. You know what I mean?
Real.
Yeah.
It feels real to me. It feels like I can see the way that the culture has grown and where it's come from and the different places and temples and shrines and just all of it. And I'm just like, of course it's real. Yep. Duh.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the architecture, the literature, it all proves that.
All of it.
It's real.
Then how much higher dimensions that they lived in. And then coming back to where we're at, it's like, man, why aren't we like practicing that? And that doesn't just go for one specific belief. I'm just and all of it. Like, why don't we integrate that into our lives?
I feel the same way about like Greek mythology.
Yeah,
and, like,
exactly.
A lot of the other myths that have taken place throughout multiple cultures, Eastern philosophy and the
unseen stuff, and more of the storytelling belief system. The stories and the beliefs and the practices are still carried on to this day because they're real.
Yeah,
they're not just good fucking stories, you guys. It's not something. That's what I mean.
There's a deeper truth,
of course, and there's the reason why there's a deeper truth is because people resonate and connect to that so much because a part of them come from that.
Yeah.
Because if that did not happen, we would not be here.
Exactly.
That's all there is to it.
Yep.
I agree with that. Well,
yeah.
What the Shyamel? What's the like? I mean, in your culture, what is like the nature of the soul? Like, what is the aspect of that? Because I mean, I feel,
that's deep.
What is I'm interested to hear about like the nature of the soul and like is it like you guys almost believe in like a reincarnation cycle? Yeah. What is sort of the how does the soul integrate into your own personal beliefs, but then in your culture as well? I mean, yeah, that's kind of a big question, but that's the stuff I'm fascinated by that.
Come on, Evan. No pressure.
Well,
no pressure.
To start off with, our soul, we believe, is a source, is a light that sources our life.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yep. I resonate with that.
So I checked that one on. Same thing. Yep.
Right. We're a vessel that's harboring this light that's keeping us alive. At the same time, it's giving us the emotion, the life, the part that's not matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
the
organic matter, the part of us that's not, solid in sense of, not blood, not your skin, your emotions, your feelings, the synapses that occur in your brain. What tells your brain to tell your body something's wrong, or what tells your body to tell your brain, hey, this feels right. That's what the soul is. That's what it brings about in your
I like that.
in your life, right? And when it comes to living a life and another, we believe we all have lived so many lives. There is a cycle of life. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a food chain to start with.
Yeah, I was just gonna say how.
I mean,
how could it not be?
Do you ever look at an animal and feel like, hey, I almost feel like that animal tried to communicate with me?
Yeah,
right.
All the time.
I mean, literally downstairs, right here, right.
Right.
3 years ago, I'm sitting here running Mom's store. I shit you not. And I've showed Evan this video. I don't have it no more. But a deer come out of nowhere in this parking lot down here and come and knocked on the door.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We're communicating. That same thing you just said. And I'm just like, oh, hi. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Like what the fuck?
Exactly. Like, on a similar instance, when I was in India and I went to this holy place where we worship. And it's
Can you elaborate on that?
Dwarka, we talked about that one place where right off the coast in my state, there used to be a very, one of our gods, an incarnation of our gods, Lord Krishna. Yep. He was a king.
Yep.
Then, and his kingdom was, he used to reside in his palace that was built off of the shore, just a little off of the shore.
That's the one that you said had the bridge to it and everything. And
yep. Gotcha. So
is that the temple that you went to?
The remnants of
like that morning? Is that the one you went
to?
Yeah.
The remnants of the temple are now sunk and underwater, but they have found it to be real. We even saw a video over it. Oh right?
Man, yep. Yeah. Remember we were watching the huge pallet. And that's the other thing too. Not to cut you off real quick, but you can't tell me that a normal man can fucking make that.
No. Oh, dude.
I'm a carpenter.
That architecture.
There's no way. There's no way. You had to have such advanced knowledge, spirit, energies, manifestation. You had to create that out of something that was not matter.
Right.
You turned it into matter.
Oh, yeah. And did you know, Tony and Evan, the architecture used to be, it was considered, the person building it, the architect was considered so important in those days for having the knowledge to be able to make something. Emperors, like huge emperors, they would hire them, have them make something, and then cut off their hands.
So they can never do it again.
So that art cannot be, replicated.
I always question things like, and not just in India, but no different than like with Genghis Khan and his empire and all, just all these different emperors, right? They do that stuff, and it makes me wonder, like, I get that that's the story and everything, but like, even I can't see how these architects could create them with their hands. You know what I mean? I think that those creators had to be like, have some knowledge of the universe and of existence. They didn't create them out of.
I wholeheartedly believe that knowledge does not exist within us anymore because of how.
Well, we've lost it.
We've lost it. Yep,
yes.
We've lost it.
I think you can't. It's infinite, right? That knowledge is infinite. Like you said, we lost it. But on the other hand, it just blows my mind to think that people can be so one-dimensional and think that they carved this out of something with this type of tool. You know, honestly, if you've ever used any type of tools and built anything, it's not the easiest thing to do.
You don't just get a straight edge into a cave.
They've carved temples and palaces out of pure mountains.
Exactly. How do you move a ton of boulders?
You can't.
Exactly.
Not unless you have some esoteric fucking awesome energies.
No kidding. Yes.
You can't, bro.
Well, and that's what Nikola Tesla was trying to reveal and talk about in the early 1900s. And it goes back to the idea of electromagnetism and harnessing the natural powers that are already present within the earth. And you use the frequency, you use the energy, and you're able to guide it and project. And so it's like, well, shit, I'm going to move a fucking block with my mind.
That's magic.
I'm going to carve something with my mind because mind creates matter.
Exactly.
More so than it's not the other way around.
No, matter does not create mind. Mind creates matter. So therefore, if you're able to tap in deeper consciously, like in a higher conscious, you bring that state of awareness and consciousness higher. Therefore, you're in a different dimension of creation. You know, so if you're able to, let's say we're in the 3D state, you know, we're all solid matter, whatever. If we're able to elevate ourselves in a higher dimension and create something there and then bring it back down to here, in a sense, then it's like poof.
Well, and it's as simple as people could think of it in terms of their imagination. What have you imagined in your own life?
And that's exactly what it is.
And went and created.
Beautiful.
But it's to a more deeper esoteric level, obviously, when we're talking about architecture and buildings and things like that. But it's the same principle. And so you can bring it down to these levels to where people start to rationalize and comprehend it.
How awesome do you have to be as a being to be able to tap into that and then come back here and create it? You know what I mean?
I think that used to be the norm.
Because for everyone, do you think?
Right.
I think there were civilizations in the past, and this is my own personal opinion, that were in alignment. Like if you talk about like the lost city of Atlantis, for example, I think there were civilizations that have existed where they harnessed the free energy, they harnessed the power source.
It's the only way that they could create these things is through free energy type of 0 point energy. I mean, all of it. Being able to tap into that field of the torus field. I mean, all of that stuff. I'm not so proficient and know all these terminology things, but you guys get what I mean. Like being magical. It's something that you can't explain is magic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that there's a universal, like, even if you look into like what's the quantum physics nowadays is starting to prove just this exact point too, where the science of today is starting to lean more esoteric in its nature, because it is proven that you can tap into the unseen and actually create and manifest from it. So I think it's there's almost like this universal law or energy that is ever present in past civilizations and past cultures and these traditions, whether it's Hindu or, you know, Greek mythology, all these older, they all knew that, and those stories are built upon that knowledge as well. And so you have these magnificent structures and all around the world, not just in India. You go down to Mexico, and you look at the Maya,
Greece.
It's almost on. It's
UK,
the pyramids,
everywhere. America. There's places,
all over
places
America.
all over. I mean, so that's the thing. I think that we were on such a higher frequency of life in
Yep.
all these times.
Absolutely.
That what happened personally, obviously this isn't true because I don't know, but it is coming from a place of knowing, I guess. But I think that we got to this certain point of like civilization, and the people that maybe weren't so proficient in it, the ones that weren't tapped in because maybe they just had doubts or whatever the case was, those were the ones that actually sabotaged it, because everybody else was so like trustworthy and so like accepting of everyone else because they all lived that vibration. But the ones that weren't on that vibration were the ones to try to ruin it and try to sabotage.
Well, you know what's interesting? I think a lot of the controllers of, like, let's say today's society, they at the highest level, they understand these principles, and that's why they
keep it hidden.
They keep it hidden, in a sense.
Because imagine if 8 billion people
woke up to this knowledge, then it would change the paradigm.
It would change so much that, I mean, things.
And if anything, I think a lot of these, like, you could say secret societies or people who are kind of dealing behind the scenes, they have an understanding of this, but then they create a system in place to where the masses at large are not limited. They're limited in their knowledge and their ability to actually go and learn and understand these things. And so they keep these secrets to themselves, create things for themselves, and manifest in a more shadow aspect of it. So, I mean, that's why you still see sacrifices going on today, and all this shit that still goes on. It's very rooted in
keep it going.
Occult, esoteric principles. But esoteric just means the unseen. That's all it means. It's it's not dark, it's not light, it's just unseen. Right, so they do esoteric practices
and occult's hidden,
hidden, and they just have the knowledge. And these principles have become esoteric because it's hidden from us, because it's not in the direct line of sight to where we've been taught to perceive the world from our. And we were talking about the senses earlier, but from our 5 primary senses,
which I think are just one sense. Because think about this, Shyamel. Tell me how you resonate with this. All the 5 senses they say we have are all still touch-based senses.
Right.
Touching something, that's one sense, right? Yep. But smelling something is the matter is still touching. Feeling that air. It's still touching your nose.
Exactly.
Seeing, the light's still touching your. So the 5 senses are more elaborate. They're more intuitive. They're more clairvoyant. They're more. All those are the senses that we have.
Right. Well, and I agree with you. And I think we have so many more senses that we limit ourselves in, but we relegate our world to this almost touch-based reactivity, is what I would call it.
We live in the 3D
because we're caught in a materialist paradigm of this is what we think reality is versus what it could actually be, and what the actual potential of what we could do and who we could be.
Unlimited.
So it's vast.
Infinite. It's infinite.
Because the nature of the soul is infinite.
It's infinite. There you go. See how it goes back to that?
Right.
Yeah. And so when it comes, I love that we started talking about this by the nature of the soul. This is what it dives into.
Well, because if you try to project just the soul, right, and you try to limit that in a sense, then not only are you doing everybody such a disservice, but you literally are limiting infinite. You can't do. I mean, it's impossible.
Yep.
There's no way to limit that.
No. I mean, it's in its essence just something you don't see.
No,
there's no limit to it.
No. But you don't see it, but you know it, and you can feel it.
And that's why I resonate so strongly with everything. I've always, from the different types of tattoos, the art I have on my body, to the different stories that I've read, to the people that I gravitate and resonate with. Like, I know I live in that infinite possibility.
Right.
I've had so many different experiences of infinite synchronicities that everything has to be. I mean, it just has to be. Like, you can't limit it.
No.
The good and the bads.
Right. Well, and I think it's interesting because I wonder sometimes too, and I used to listen to a lot of I still do listen to a lot of Ram Dass, and he's heavily influenced by Hindu culture. And he what was his guru's name? I'm blanking on it, but he went to India and he met with a guru, and that's where he learned a lot of his foundational spiritual beliefs. And when he talks about reincarnation, he said there's a great story he has where somebody asked him, how many times have we come back into this life? And he said, the amount of time it would take a bird to fly over a mountain with a silk cloth once every 100 years and brush against the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
The time it takes to erode that mountain by brushing it with a silk cloth is how long our soul has been doing this reincarnation.
Oh, yeah.
Infinite.
Infinite.
It would never.
Infinite amount. You can't even fathom it.
Because you can't erode a mountain with
a silk
cloth unless it does an infinite amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Therefore, that's the whole cycle and conundrum of it. If you realize, like, we are each other, we are everything, we are nothing, but we like all of it. Like, I have lived your life an infinite amount of times, as you have of mine. And I mean, the cycle, you are Shiva, I am, I mean, so many, like, it's all tied together. We are, I've been that tapestry. Like,
right.
You've been that camera. Like, that's what I mean, though. It's so infinite that's why it is so precious and so unique that we are able to distinguish this and talk about this right now. That's why it is a gift.
Oh, yeah.
That is why it's a gift. And that's why it is so important that we are consciously aware of what we are doing now, so that it can feed back into the infinitesimal cycle of everything.
Do you think there's more beyond the human experience as a soul? Like, because I was thinking in terms of, like, when Ram Dass said that, someone could hear that. And I've heard this critique of where, all right, is it a soul trap to where we keep coming back to Earth and that we're stuck in the human experience? We're stuck in this form, right? There's a part of me that's like, all right, I'm ready for the next evolution of the soul, in a sense.
But you already are living that.
Well, evolution. And that's the thing. And it's like, well,
it is a trap. But you know what? It is also not a trap.
I think it depends on what you create out of it.
Yes.
To where I don't think this is a trap, and like, because there's people who will take it to the extreme of, like, where our soul is being harvested to feed some sort of, like, interdimensional.
But you know what? That is true. It has to be true, because if it is infinite, you think about that, you guys. We get back to this all the time. And that's what's really funny, is that I think that the next stage of our infinite life is like feeling and being the infinite. But if you think about the infinite part of it, everything that we create with our imagination is real
in some facet. In some aspect.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't, then everything that is real now is not real.
Yeah. Well, couldn't be. That's because mind, like we were saying, mind creates matter. So it's like, in some timelines, in some, like, because I think we have infinite parallel lives too. We have,
it has to be.
Every choice creates a branch off of a different parallel reality.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, we let's say one of us decided today, let's push the podcast back until Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Some shit. I don't know.
Something. Yeah. Yep.
But if I message you back and say, oh yeah, you know what? Let's actually push it back a couple of days, just because I need to get ready for work. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
That creates a whole different parallel reality.
Right.
For that one choice.
Each choice does.
But so it's like, since there's infinite parallel choices, then my mind is kind of breaking over here.
You cannot fathom the infinite amount of choices with your mind. No. You can feel it with your conscious, with your heart, with your whole aura. You can feel it, because, like you were saying, the unseen. It goes back to that. The unseen is infinite.
Yep. Exactly.
And then I think when you come to the point of death, if you are living in this point of awareness in this lifetime, and you're embodying this, and you can kind of lean into, let's say, a transition out of this human experience, then the soul has almost done what it's supposed to in this lifetime. And then you can create the choice to where, all right, I'm going to come back as some fucking higher dimensional, like, archangel type of being, and you can create that. Yep. But if you're creating a feedback loop, and I think there's karma in it, to where if you're avoiding death, well, you go into death, then you in a way that springs and you create a new life, and then you're brought back into the human experience until you can actually
choose a different choice to get away from that.
No karma going into the point of death, because death creates life, and it's the same thing. So it's like, if you avoid it, then you create life. Boom.
You got to accept it.
Yeah. So you have to accept.
You have to. That's the whole thing.
Yep.
It's the whole plethora of everything. Being able to accept that and tune yourself with that is so difficult. Only because we are not don't think in this state of being, we are not infinite, right? Because that's why we die. But our essence, our soul, our being is infinite. So it's a very tricky thing to try to experience through the limits that we put on ourselves.
Yeah, through the limits of the physical in aspects of our existence. You can only have so much within a physical body, a physical realm, a physical.
And that's why I get so connected with you guys and have such great conversations and experiences, is because I know in past lives, like I chose not to. I chose to try to do this on my own. And now I'm able to.
Even in this lifetime, I've done it.
Yeah, see what I mean? It's so odd.
Yeah,
but it's beautiful in a sense too, because I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shyamel, have you ever had any past life visions or regressions or things, or thought about past lives?
Anything, honestly.
I aside haven't from being exactly
like Buddha and stuff.
Right. Yeah, besides being the Buddha himself.
Right. It's more like a connection to things that make me wonder why I am so deeply connected to something. That makes me feel that there has to be a secondary stretch of life that I am not aware of, or
there's like there's like an imprint from previous lives.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes to small attachments, whether it's food that randomly show up and happen to just taste so familiar, or whether it's people, whether it's places that you've only heard of, and then one day you show up there
and you're like, whoa.
And you're like, yeah.
Well,
I remember this.
I'd recommend, Shyamel, for you. I think you'd find this. You'd be open to this. I wouldn't recommend this to just everybody. I'd recommend it for you too. I think I've told you about this. I went on YouTube one time and I just did it was like a past life hypnosis almost. So it's like you go into a deep meditative state and it's guided through, somebody facilitates it. And so it leads you into, and I kind of went in like, I don't know if I'm going to actually experience anything, but I'm open to trying it. Yeah. And it was about an hour long. And I ended up going into it and I had no like, I want to experience this or I want to experience that. Right. And I went into it and it was based on looking at a past life, and you go in and experience a past life. And I had, out of fucking nowhere, while I'm in this setting, it's like went from this body into a whole nother life. And I was there. I even remember the name of the person that I experienced. I was in this like village of, I want to say it was like Northern European, like type of, I don't know, Norway or like Viking, some type of shit like that. But I was like a blacksmith in that, and I had a whole family, and I had a whole community and a village, and we were on the fucking outskirts of a kingdom, and like we'd been torn down from our previous, like we were living royally in a sense, but we were on the outskirts. And my name in it was Rasmus. And I had the vision of I remember having
You look like a Rasmus.
I had a beautiful like daughter and family and wife and children, and like it was so real. And I remember coming back and I'm like, holy shit. And that's like, and I was a blacksmith. That was my trade.
Can I ask you, because it's funny you say that, because that's kind of, I've had a few, and we've talked about it, I've had a few different kind of journeyings back to other lives that I've had, in my own opinion, but when that happened to you, I just want to know, when you came back now, was there like a longing to go back to
Yes. but it felt like it's interesting, because sometimes when you imagine something, you like it, the thinking about it, it was more like a memory more so than a story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, wow, I remember experiencing that. I remember being that. I mean, and that was my soul was in that body at that time in that place. And it's like, I knew it. Like there was a knowing that's one of my past lives.
So have you ever felt that way? Have you ever had any connections or any experiences like that in this life?
Yeah, absolutely. I often, not often, but
this is, and you're just, mind you are open to say whatever the hell you want.
There are quite a few times I come across I call them dreams, because there's no other words I've found for it yet.
Yeah.
But it's just not myself, but I find that it's my own presence living something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another, that's another life. That's another reality.
Another life.
Yeah. And I call it a dream, but I attach to that feeling very much so, that you're there and you're whole there as well. And that's you, because I don't remember
because you're there.
face, and it's my presence, dude.
Yeah,
I know that's me.
I don't need to look at myself in the mirror to know it's
right?
me.
Like
No.
I know that's me, and
Or why else would you be
that's-
experiencing
that
it?
guy walking is me. I know it.
Yep.
It's a very familiar feeling. So yeah.
How did that kind of like make you feel when you were like you woke up or when you come back to it? Like
you know, the strength of the feelings like that in a vision or a dream that I saw to what I find myself to be when I'm thinking of such, is a lot stronger when I'm here than as to when I see it in vision. So I often feel like, what if I were right there? Would I have made, I want to learn the choice that I would have made
there. Yeah. So do you think that sometimes maybe this is your dream and that's where you're at?
Right.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's an amazing way to put it, because I mean, our subconscious is just playing our life out by our own behavior and like that we build upon.
Yeah.
It's really not a matrix, but let's call it.
It's a matrix.
It's an infinite loop of everything.
Yeah.
I've had an experience like you guys are saying. I'll just share it with you real quick. I've told Evan this before, but I literally was. I know it was in Egypt because it was deserts and pyramids and maybe even the pyramids of Giza. Now I don't know really, but so I was literally on this like huge slab of just rock, right? And there was 2 thrones. It was me and my wife, my queen, whatever, and I must have been the king, right? And like for some odd reason, I knew like I was going into battle, let's say, right? I just felt like I was at war with something. And then all of a sudden, like I used some like eagle eye, like 1,000,000,000 mile stare and looked across the desert. And there was like all these crazy, wild, demonic looking things, but like an infinite amount of them rushing at me. Okay. And I was not scared. There was no fear in me at all. Like anything else or anyone else, we'd have been running the other way or digging a hole. I just got up and started walking to them. And then like I sent like this conscious like force to them and they all just went and disappeared.
Right.
And I was just like, and then I know that sounds wild and I know it's like, oh, that's just a dream. But like I embodied that person, that thing that I was dreaming about that I was. And I had feelings like I do here. Maybe I wasn't so connected to it because obviously I'm here. But on the other hand, like I was connected to it.
Right.
When you were experiencing it, it was real.
Had to have been.
Yep.
Because I had that, I experienced it.
Right. Do you ever find yourself questioning or just do you ever wonder if your current life would the decisions you make in your current life that build upon your character would make a difference in what your life would be in a parallel world or say a past life decisions or
that's one of the things I ponder about a lot, honestly, is what you just said, because there are so many like I said, I've experienced a lot of different paths in my life and I've sometimes I'll throw it all away. Like there was a time when me and my wife got together our first year. This is promise, true heartfelt story. I'm not just making shit up, right? And you guys are gonna look at me funny, and I've told you this before, but I want everyone to know I like to gamble. I like to play cards. I was on this site called fulltilt.com on the internet playing Texas Hold'em. I had like $10 in my bank account, so I bought into this tournament for $5.50. Okay, and it was a rebuy, meaning you could keep buying back into this tournament if you got taken out until the break. Well, the break was like 4 hours and then it was a break then for whatever. Well, she went to work. It was our anniversary, a 1-year anniversary. So I was like just excited. I'm like, I just had a good feeling about it, man. I was like, man, I'm going to win this thing. Well, there was over 15,000 people in this tournament. So if you just do $5.50 times 15,000, just that in itself right there is a lot of money, right? Well, these people could buy in as much as they wanted until break. Well, the first 30 to 40 minutes of the game, I started building up my stack. By break time, I was the chip leader of all these people. I had the most chips, right? Meaning first place was in excess of $2.1 million. And I had the most chips by 3 times to the next person, and then maybe 5 times to the next. So when I got to the final table, I had 3 times as much chips as the second place person. I had like 6 or 7 times as most chips as the third place. So I was just like, I had like over 100 people watching me. because after you're done,
yeah,
you know,
you can view it. Yep.
So I'm just so ecstatic and happy, you guys. I was just like, I'm gonna be a millionaire, right? I was 24, 25 years old, whatever I was. Well, my girlfriend, my wife, but my girlfriend at the time, she gets home and it was our anniversary, like I said. Well, I did make, you know, not the right choices as far as like putting my energy into her. And I was on the computer a lot. I played World of Warcraft and I played video games on it. And she was just a little upset that it was our anniversary and I was still on the computer. So she was pissed when she got home at 6 or whatever it was. So I tried to tell her, I'm like, honey, I'm going to win us millions of dollars. She didn't believe me, obviously. I mean, it's far-fetched, you know, whatever. But it was true. So instead of continuing and winning that money, I felt so bad because she didn't care what I was trying to do for us that I just threw my chips away and kept going all in. At first, they were, obviously, I could take, every time I went all in, I could take that person out if they called me, right? Because I had so many more chips than them. But after I did it about 7 or 8 times in a row, they started being like, what's going on here? You know, they were freaking out because it's like, why are you throwing away $2 million, right? Well, I got last place. And last place was like $15,000 or $16,000. I got that. I got it deposited into my bank account. Okay. Before I could even tell her, I said, you know what? Screw it. They have this other thing where you could do a heads up gameplay with another person. And the limit was like, I think it was like $2,500 to $5,000. That was the most you could play one-on-one against. And I went into there and I gave the person I played against all my money right away, 3 times in a row. Okay. I never talked about it with her again. I was very upset until she seen her bank statement and was wondering where the hell I got that much money for and then why it was all gone. And I said, honey, I tried to tell you that I was going to win over $2 million and you didn't want to see it. You want nothing to do with it. So that choice, just imagine if I would have made that choice, you guys, and said, you know what? I don't care what she says. I'm winning this fucker. Right. We wouldn't be here right now. No. I would not be talking to you. I would have all that money. Who knows? I might not even be here. Who knows what would happen? Right. But that, like you said, I ponder that a lot because I've had so many choices that I've chose to do on such the opposite spectrum of what the norm would be for anybody. Like, why would you you were number 1 in your class in the Navy in your A school. Like, why would you just give it all away and throw it away and quit the military or whatever? And it's just like, that's just what I was supposed to do. Or I wouldn't have done it. What you did. That's what I did. So going back to that question with, have I ever? Yes, I have. And the choices, if I never had kids, you know, if I, all these different things, if I never would have talked to Evan or you or whatever it is, it's very difficult to live in that mindset because it's not reality. Yep. Now, was it a reality somewhere else? Of course it is. Yeah. Because it's an infinite amount. But I just thought
there's some other lifetime where you you took all that money.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe I kept building on it and I had billions and billions because I'm very lucky when it comes to that aspect of it. But that's greed, materialistic value that I still, you know, I struggle with at times. But I do have everything that I need. I have brothers like you. I have children like I do. Like I have a wife like a family like I do. I don't need anything else. I don't want anything else because my life is perfect in that sense. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I like that story. Yeah. I don't know. I think I've heard that story. It's been a couple of years since I've heard that one.
And you know, and another one is like selling my. As I said, I was on the computer selling my World of Warcraft account. Yep. I played that game in 2004 when it came out, and I played it religiously. I was 17, 18 when it came out, but played it religiously for like a year straight. Like out of 365 days of the year, I played the playtime every second, minute, hour, days. I played that game 280 days. So I literally only slept.
And played and slept.
That's it. So with that being said, I was going out with this girl and I moved down to Dallas, Texas, and I needed some money. So I sold my account in 2007 and I sold it for $1,000. But the guy that was selling it that bought it from me, he offered me 1,000 Bitcoins at the time. Ooh. Well, Bitcoins just came out then. Right. No one really knew unless you were a part of it and you knew. Everybody else, the whole world didn't know. So I'm not going to take 1,000. Well, right now, if I had 1,000 Bitcoins, you see how much money that is? Yeah. Over $50 million. Yep. So see if I would have made that choice. You see all these different choices. Like another example, me and Evan went to the Badlands. Yeah. Okay. We like to explore. We like to hike. We like to climb, all that stuff, right? Yep. I'm a little bit more athletic in climbing than my brother Evan, only because he's never been out here like I have. I've been out here my whole life and just been able to climb and stuff. So the first thing I did was climb the tallest mountain I could and sit on the top of it and scream boom Shiva boom. I was so excited. I was paying homage to fucking Lord Shiva. It's chaos incarnate of me being there, not only being there with a broken heart, but being there on top of this mountain and seeing all of the Badlands. And the only thing I was worried about was wanting to show him, look, I'm up here, bro. There are people down there taking pictures of me and stuff. And I didn't care. I was being very mindful of it was no bigger. The top of it was no bigger than this table right here. So I had to be careful because if I would fall, I was dead.
Oh yeah.
Easily. And I had to remember I had a scrape right because I had to come down it right here and scrape my chest to hold on. I got up there easy, but I couldn't go off that way because it was flat. So but I was like, Evan, where are you? Well, he was stuck in between this.
I got wedged.
He got wedged in there because it was about 9 feet, let's say, up, but it was so hard. It was hard to get up there in a sense because he is kind of a taller, lengthy dude, so his arms don't work.
Well, and I was trying to get down is my problem. That was where how I got stuck, and it started collapsing. What happened
is I was hollering. Finally, I just got that feeling inside of me. I got to get down quick. So I started getting down, and I'm running down these mountains, and I'm yelling, Evan, where are you? And all of a sudden I hear, hey, hey. And then I start going to his voice, and I see him, and I can just see his head and his eyes, and he's looking up. He's like, hey. I'm like, what's wrong? I'm stuck. And he's trying to get up. And at that moment when he said that, I just run to him, and I see what he was doing, and he's trying to get out of there. Well, there was this, I don't know, boulder, big, nice sized boulder. I mean, maybe 3, 2, 3, 4, whatever, however many pounds. But it was loose enough that when he was trying to grab it, it was moving. And that was the only thing that he could really grab onto. And did you drop your phone? I can't remember if it fell down.
I did, yeah. It fell down there.
It fell down. I mean, this was crazy, okay? Well, I knew the extreme, the danger of it. I could see what was happening. And I'm like, if he don't stop, this thing's going to fall on him and kill it. Yeah. So I had to tell him, Evan, fucking stop. Because he was getting a little freaked out. Yeah. I would have been too. It's like, when you flight or fight type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, just stop. I fucking grab his armpits enough to where he can push himself up. He climbs out, and he's fucking white as ghost, and then that fucking rock falls.
Oh, my God.
And we're like, he looks at me, he's like, you just saved my life. And I was like, and before that, I was wanting one of his cigarettes. He had this cigarette pack. He didn't smoke with it, okay, mind you, and I did. And he was saving these as a nostalgic thing for his dad and stuff. And I kept trying to get a cigarette from him. He's like, no, quit asking me. No. After that, he's like, you want one of those cigarettes? I was like, yes. So it was cool.
Absolutely.
So that choice right there, if I wouldn't have chose to get down and I would have just kept embracing me being on top of the world.
There goes little Evan. Boom.
And everything that we're creating now and have. So it's just wild that, we're able to have those different branches and forks at the road that what we chose could have changed the entirety of reality so much.
Oh yeah, dude.
Make sure the computer's still on.
Oh no.
Don't touch it.
Did it die?
I don't think so.
No, it's on.
That's good.
The screen
just battery saver. We have 17% battery life.
All right. So we're almost at a wrap-up point then, I guess.
All right.
Oh, just plug it in actually. Take that thing right there.
Yes.
Yep, plug it in. Although it doesn't always charge when you're using it. That's the one thing with that computer.
There, battery saver turned off. Low charge connected, low charge
connected.
Yeah. Battery and charging may be unreliable.
That's it's
battery charging may be unreliable.
Well, it is.
Well, what happened?
Oh, I got coverage.
You do?
Yeah.
So we can keep going?
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna continue Fifth Dimension viewers because we don't want to stop it. You don't have to work today? You're done?
I'm just. She got back to me about 45 minutes ago.
And said yes? Sure. Awesome. See how we created that? Because then after this, guess what? We can go out into the wilderness.
Why did somebody Venmo me $800? Hold on. I'm gonna.
What?
There's a lot of confusion going on at the moment. Hold on.
We want to keep this live, bro. I want to see this.
Hold on.
Someone Venmo'd you $800?
Yeah, that's weird.
Can I borrow $20, dude?
I'm gonna Venmo it back. Why would she do that?
Oh my God.
Oh, I'll explain it after the
After the
podcast.
podcast, okay,
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what's going on with that.
So, well, let's keep going on with that though. The whole, like what you said, choices and path,
Right.
because I would love to hear what you think if you wouldn't have chose to stay in America. What do you think your life would be like now?
I think it would be a lot less opportunistic for one. I get a lot less, how do I say it, exposure to other things that I want exposure to. It limits my travel, well, not exactly, but it limits my travel to another continent, really.
Here, give me a second. I need to stand up and.
No, you're good.
I'm gonna just so I'm not over sitting there on my phone and distracting you guys.
No, you're good.
You're good.
No, you're good, man.
Yeah.
This is kind of.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're fine. So, with not to jump in, but one example is the viewers don't know, but like you are maybe not actively at this moment, but you have been taking piloting classes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's fucking in itself. Is that a huge opportunity in India that you can do?
There is, but it's not widely available as I would be able to just do out of a regional airport here.
Yep.
It's not as easy as it would
That's
be
what I mean, yeah.
outside of here.
So that's pretty interesting that you're able just to do that in itself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a choice that
Yep.
maybe if you weren't here, not saying that that's one reason why you're here, but just,
Yeah. And kind of one thing that I really like that right above South America, which I find to be like a home to a very like special kind of culture,
Like in Central America, you mean?
Even here, just
you mean
all
just
of America,
just where we're at?
Yeah, just all of Americas, because I've never seen this.
No.
Right. And it's still new to me. Yep. It's still new to me, despite almost a decade. It's still new to me.
Well, last year you went on a trip on your motorcycle.
Right.
Where'd you go?
We did Montana, a little bit of Montana, mountains in Montana, Wyoming, mountains in Canada, glaciers in Canada,
And just that in itself, if you were in India, would you be able to experience something like that?
Well, not so much because it's a whole different kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Yep.
Exactly. You're looking at the Tetons and then you're looking at the Everest.
Yep.
Each in its own right is beautiful, magnificent, huge, and just as scary.
Yep. So it's really cool that not only are you here, but how you've embraced it, how you've incorporated it into your everyday life. It's not that you've just changed your being so much of who you are, because you are perfect, in my opinion, as far as who you are. And I love that about you. But on the other hand, like, you are so willing to like adapt and like learn that it's very interesting to see, because most people, and it's not just because you're from India, it's because you're in a different space. If you were from Russia or you're from Africa or no different, like Australia type per se, you're over here and like you're just like learning and growing and living and experiencing. And I love that you're able to do that.
Yep.
Because I think you really do find joy in
it. Yeah. And it's like, how do I say it? So it all really how you see it, how you react to it, being in a new place, and deciding if it would be different. Not deciding, just pondering if it would be different, not being here and being somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on a personality of the person too, because say I'm very ambitious, I like to take pride, and I'm also I like to think of it as my personality being a fire sign or something of the sort, where I can exert so much. And what I know is fire can exert a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm of the fire too.
In its source, in its
essence of it,
like where it comes from, say it's really where fire really comes from, like when it ignites the combustion itself, it's very hot,
and bright.
Yeah, and bright. At times it can be that scary as well.
Yeah, because fire destroys too.
In a different place, it helps. It creates something different, So it's like saying, in my hometown, yes, I'll know just as much as I can about the culture, the people. Excuse me. The opportunities I can make are countless, but that comes with the ease of having so much support. That's because that is my home there.
Your foundation. Yeah, it's already been established for you before you even born.
Exactly.
So you kind of just go with it.
Yep.
You know, and
being here teaches you a very important aspect of survival, which is to
rely on yourself.
That too, and to be able to integrate yourself. You know, this time I hope I am the one person that is able to create that environment for somebody who created such an environment for me over in India. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, most definitely. Because it's like if they wouldn't have created that over there for you in India, there'd be no way that you could be able to create it here.
Right, exactly. I've seen it. Someone set that up, and I saw beautiful. It, and I think it was a great idea that they had so many people around, and I want to be able to create such a learning, conducive, something beautiful for people that I know, and I want to cherish them. So I want it to happen just for that sake itself.
I get that.
So I
really like that you're able to express that in a way that's so much more different than, let's say, my own path or my own experience, because I mean, I have been through 2 other places throughout the world and stuff, let's say, but nothing to that extreme by any means. And I really want to, like, I've expressed this to you in the past, like, I would love to go to India with you. Oh, I mean, we're going to, but I mean, I'm talking about like tomorrow,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, I would just, that's something that has the different places that I've connected to throughout the world. India is like top 5, like maybe top 3 even, honestly, because just the culture and the energies and the different beliefs and the different deities and beings, and it's just so beautiful. And like, I mean, just everything. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah,
there's no other way to express it. It's beautiful.
It's vast. You know? It's vast.
And like the culture that it's been built upon for countless years, and how much it's grown and how sustained it's been. It's amazing that like it's been that way for so long and it hasn't like ended, type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, obviously it's changed some, or things have been forgotten or whatever, but like the actual essence of it is still there. Yeah. That's not normal for this world.
No. And I think a lot of times people find that very intriguing or very disturbing at the same time. Does that make sense?
Why do you think that finds that disturbing? Why would you say that? Like threatening? Do you think people are threatened by that?
Possibly even. And it could just be that it's something so new to them. I mean, what would you say if you saw, we understand that cults are bad sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But does every person have the ability to discern that some cults are not, or some groups are not?
I don't think so. I think that they kind of almost by
popular opinion.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like they just don't know. And that they kind of do what they feel is right, but maybe how they were brought up, or how their structures or values, their core values, maybe they weren't built on a strong foundation to begin with. So they,
Yeah.
But what other like cultures? And I don't know this answer, but what other cultures are as old as India's that are still going? Is there any?
I'm sure there are. I mean, I find
the
Native American culture very intriguing, and I'm sure it is possibly just even old.
Yeah, but think about it, Shyamel.
It's very.
Even if there are, I'm enrolled in.
I know for a fact that the Native American culture has to be that old, because.
Yeah, but we're not that. It's not the structure of the Native Americans has been broken and been taken and been ruined. You know what I mean? But India at its core is still India at its core.
I like to.
There is influence. There are.
Place a lot of gratitude for that onto just the geographical location we've been given, because the country of India itself, when it was an empire, was once surrounded by one of the largest water bodies in the Southeast Asia.
Yep. So like
the Indus River.
It being kind of secluded in a sense.
One of the cleanest waters, the Indus River, coming straight from Mount Everest.
Yep.
Right. We're given one of the highest mountain ranges, longest mountain ranges.
Yep. So it's very hard to try to
invade. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were given plenty of resources.
So basically, what I perceive it as is like you had like the perfect spot to create a civilization without being interfered. Not saying that there hasn't been
it did
interference,
emerge, the Indus Valley civilization, what we believe to be the Vedic civilization before it was called the Indus Valley civilization. The Vedic civilization started off with smallest survival instincts. They need food and water. Where does that come from? Right from the mountains, right? They place themselves right under the foot of the mountains, and then the country grew.
And it comes to them.
Right.
Basically, it flows downriver in a sense.
And then the country grew.
Yep.
And as big as it did, with whether it was with trade, whether it was with spice, whether it was with business or war.
Conquering, I was just gonna say.
Right. I mean, I know we haven't been known to conquer much, but
because you didn't have to.
But the political,
that's the thing.
The way of operating with politically for India has been very, very intriguing. I have known parts of history, not very accurately, but just briefly, that queens or princesses were married off to another foreign countries, and we were given plenty of foreign
Riches,
princesses
gotcha.
Get married into for the peace of just
stability and
not
going to war,
not having to have us invade into another country when they're at a weak point, and as a show of gratitude and support and unity. I mean, some countries just got done fighting a war, they need to be rebuilt, they'll come
and then India would help them.
We're gonna give you this much land, we're gonna give you a princess, and we're gonna hold a wedding. Done. Nothing more, nothing less. And then that shows the world that, hey, now they're a united force. Do you really want to mess with a country that you can't really invade right now?
No, honestly, no, you don't. So it's really neat to see how it's been so sustained for so many thousands of years. And obviously everything changes, but on the other sense, like the core of India, I think, is very pure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's always intrigued me and like excited me in a way. Like I really like and resonate with a lot of the beliefs and a lot of the feelings and a lot of like the perceptions of why we do this, what we do this, how we do, type of thing. So it's really interesting to think about, and I'm very like grateful that I get to like have these conversations with you, only because like it's so difficult to be where we are in South Dakota, and to have such a good friend to be able to like bounce these conversations off of each other, because a lot of people in their whole life will never be able to get to experience a conversation like this.
Right, exactly. And I find that same gratitude towards you, because it's hard to find friends like you, Tony. You're one of the best people I've known, and I want to continue to get
of course, we'll just grow it,
share ideas, chat, and grow as friends, brothers. One thing I am curious about, though, as you mentioned earlier, was we were talking about how India in its core brings out a lot of its ancient practices, values, whatnot, and that's what creates the culture there, right? And I'm sure Native Americans here still have the same going, but yes, it was broken out because someone invaded them very terribly.
And, they basically tried to extinct them, and
but I mean, how do you personally feel about the knowledge that's there compared to I mean, obviously there's got to be some feelings of resentment, but compared to like wanting to know the knowledge that's gone?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, and I have thought about that numerous times. Not only being a part of such a proud and great people as far as being a Sioux, they're highly recognized and highly like people didn't mess with them.
Very skilled,
like,
dude.
Other Native American tribes around the whole United States, like they were known to be like the best warriors. Then they had a lot of people in their tribe, so it was very hard to try to conquer and take them over, right? Well, personally, I do feel some like resentment in a sense of like they built their tribes off of spirit, off of giving back to the earth, about holding everything that has life in such high regard, and using everything that nature, that earth would give them in a sense of like gratitude, not just of like sustainment. You know what I mean? Like in the summer times, they would be on the plains. You know,
Yep.
in the winter time, we would go back to the Black Hills and we would shelter in the hills.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can survive out here when it's
No.
30, 40 below, winds are going crazy, you know, unless you lived underground, you know.
Yeah.
But so they literally utilized everything in their environment to just have a united existence. And I think that, you know, when we got taken from that per se, when it was taken from us, like not only did it really disrupt like the ebb and flow of like existence and humanity, and like how the energies were, like it put a lot of like resentment on our own people, and like how they were willing to like express who they were and grow, like because they were stuck, they didn't have no other options.
Yep,
you know?
exactly.
And,
I mean,
and it's really sad to look now and go to the reservations and stuff and just to see all the defeated before they even got a chance. They're defeated, you know, and it's very unfair in a sense. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should stay in that self, you know, pity cycle or whatever it is, because you have a choice to do whatever you want.
Yep.
But I do also think that there are limitations when it comes from like what you look like and who you are and how you carry yourself. Like Native Americans are very proud in the sense of proud being a part of something, a part of a tribe, and being helpful and understanding. But on the other hand, like that sadness of like being taken from what you really should be, and then projecting it out now to present day, it's very difficult to like get from that. And I think that, I hate to say it, but I don't see it ever changing. I just see it getting worse and worse, because that's not the way they're supposed to live, like as a people.
Right.
So unless something drastically changes, I literally think that it'll just be forgotten. And it's sad because it's like like you said, that is some of the oldest and most profound peoples of this world.
I mean, it's mentioned in my scriptures, so I mean, yeah, because it's been known to have mentioned that there is a tribe of people that worship spirits and lives, right on the other end of the earth from where we are at, and
that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah,
you know, and it's wild to think that like greed and desire and all these like forms of like, I don't want to say sin, you know, but all these like forms of like selfishness, let's say, could ruin something so beautiful. They do say though, which is really neat, there's like a prophecy in Native American culture that when the buffalo come back to the Black Hills, that everything will start changing, and that's kind of what's happening at this moment. Like,
right.
So it's really cool to see, like,
and it is. I mean, you're starting to see a bit of a change of like, you know, whether it's a bit of confidence or a bit of you start to see that willpower, that strength again in the newer generation.
Oh, most definitely.
You
know, I think also what it has to do with is like the integration of like peoples. Like when you put all these peoples together and they start making babies, and I'm not saying that they're not just Native American, because there's not a whole lot of like pure bloods of anything anymore. I mean, unless you're secluded in a country that no one ever comes to. But anyways, what I mean though is that like we're all one people. You know, we're all come from that divine point of source of God, of creation, of whatever you want to call it, right? So with that being said, I think that in a full cycle it will go back to that. So I do think that we will get out of this whole like suppressing of our brothers and sisters and of our neighbors. Because that's not the way that the cycle goes anyways. I mean, it's never, just because we've been here for thousands and thousands or even millions and millions of years, like that compared to infinite is nothing.
No, exactly. I mean, even ourselves, you look at it, something that happens in a span of 10 years or 10 years or a decade is only an eighth, possibly an eighth of our lives.
Yeah, and that's really not a whole lot.
No, it's really not.
No.
I mean, you got 8 more parts of your whole life.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like, and then not only that, but then if you literally look at it in the esoteric aspect of like, well, we are infinite and eternal, and we do reincarnate, we do come back.
Right.
It's not. It really is nothing. So just try to, help that projection and that change and that growth in every part that you can in your life, so that you are able to look back and be like, I can't wait for the next part.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's all it is.
I mean, you're just pushing the idea further and further until you finally get your result.
Yep, just creation.
Exactly.
That's all we really are doing, is creating. I think that's the only thing we should probably focus on, is the actual creation. Of because we were created, and we have to continue to create to sustain. If we don't create and we destroy, then we have nothing. So.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Evan.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna close it up.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I do appreciate you coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, you guys. I mean, I've always wanted to sit down
back and say bye.
Have a proper chat.
It'd be an odd one, but it's okay.
You guys, hey.
Our viewers will think it's funny. Our host had to take off real quick. Sorry.
I know, the world of monetary transaction and material
gets to be chaotic a little bit. But.
Yeah, craziness.
Oh, whatever. All right. Thanks, Shyamel.
Thanks, Shyamel.
Yeah, thank you for having me.